The homeowner might contain the fire. It could be a small kitchen fire. I've had instances where people use their stove, their oven area as
For heat?
for storage
Oh my gosh.
because they have limited cabinet storage space. So they might have some Tupperware or some plastic items that are, because they're bulky, they store them and then they forget about it. And they go to, bake a cake or something, they preheat the oven and all of a sudden that plastic melts and you get, a nice coating of black smoke all over everything.
Welcome everybody, I'm Kamil Sarji, your host today, and we have Carmine here. Carmine, you want to tell us about you?
Yeah, my name is Carmine DeLuca. I'm with All Dry Services of Rhode Island. We are a disaster restoration company providing water damage, fire, smoke, mold, trauma, biohazards, anything that might affect a property we can help out with.
Boom. It's amazing. All right. So this show is called Just 2 Minutes, and it's basically me asking random questions for the first 2 minutes. It's timed, no stress. And then after that, we talk about the real estate industry. We talk about you, your background. I have some questions. I'm really excited about you being here today. So you ready for the other questions?
Great. Yeah, let's go.
Okay. My timer here. All right. Three, two, one. Carmine, what's the first thing you do in the morning?
The first thing I do, that's a good question. I like to eat. I like to have a nice breakfast, relax, catch up on the maybe what the weather's going to be that day, because it changes so quickly. Even if you heard the news the night before,
It's changes.
it already changed. So catch up on a little of the news, the weather, and then have a nice breakfast.
In your opinion, who is the best flutist in the world? Is it Sir James Galloway or Jeannie Baxtresser?
Okay, as far as flutists go,
Yeah.
I'm not a student of the flute, if you will, so that's a tough question for me to
It
answer.
is. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, if you ask me about
But who are those two? Like, who's
I have no idea who they are.
Sir James Galloway or Jeannie Baxtresser, if you had to guess?
Jeannie Baxtresser.
Okay. That's a good opinion. Do you sing in the shower?
No.
You don't? Okay. If you were to sing in the shower, what song would you sing?
Big fan of Willie Nelson and Julio Iglesias when they do a duet.
That's what you would sing if you could. If you would sing.
I'd sing a Willie Nelson song. Yeah.
What's the biggest favor that you did for someone?
It was probably when I was in the military. When I was in the Air National Guard, and I met people. I was in basic training. Was in Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, and we had to pass a physical. We had to do some routine running, and you had to get to a mile within so much time. And there was one fella, I believe he was from Oklahoma, and he was having trouble making the time. And so I held back to pace him so that he could make the time and complete the course.
So you stuck around for...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So what'd you think of those questions?
Fine. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Carmine, so exciting to have you here. You've been in the industry for a while.
Yeah.
And you are really good, I would say, in my opinion, really good at connecting with realtors. What's your secret sauce?
Just attending a lot of networking events and just being honest and upfront with people. Don't overpromise or don't kind of go outside of your lane. And I was prior to coming on with All Dry, I was with a much smaller restoration company, and we primarily just did water damage and mold remediation. But it was through working with that company for 12 plus years that I got to meet a lot of realtors, because we were solely focused on, for the most part, again, those two things, water damage and mold.
So now you guys offer more. Now you have an opportunity.
All Dry national franchise. They were part of a group of almost 300 franchises. Our group is probably the largest territory-wise in the country for All Dry because we own all of Rhode Island. So as a franchise, we own every territory in the state. So we own all of Rhode Island, all of Connecticut, and we just acquired all of Southeast Mass.
Wow.
So we have an office in Plymouth, Mass, in West Warwick, Rhode Island, in Berlin, Connecticut, which is just south of Hartford, and an office in Stamford.
That's amazing. So you broaden your coverage area.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate that I just have to worry about Rhode Island, but it helps out because whether, you're a realtor, an insurance agent, a property management company, you might have clients on either side. So you might have clients in, Swansea, Stoughton, Fall River, the Attleboroughs, or you might have clients in Putnam and Killingly and, nearby Connecticut. So we can service those areas. And then if it's further out, if it's down the Cape or if it's down in Stamford, we have offices in Plymouth and in Stamford to handle that. So I can be the easy button for a lot of folks that have a broader coverage area themselves.
So question about your business is super high stress because people are calling at 2 a.m., the water's coming down or the house is like burned. You don't get those calls.
Well, I do. So, there's a balance. So
Okay.
I have my cell number on my business card.
Yeah.
So people can call me 24/7. They can call me if they just have a question on something, if they're not sure. In the case of an insurance project or a damage at a property, we offer a service whereby we can go out and provide a free evaluation and free estimate. So that's critical for homeowners, especially to understand how big of a problem do I really have? Because you don't want to just call that 800 number. You want to have a better understanding of what's going on, get that estimate. Now you can have that conversation with your insurance agent. They know your claim history, they know your deductible, and they can help you decide, is this worth calling in a claim? So I have my cell number on there, but
So people call you like there's a waterfall in my living room. You get that call?
I can
like
get that.
right now there's like a waterfall
Exactly.
in my living room. You get that?
I get that call, and it is very stressful for us. You almost have to be a counselor, to just kind of put people at ease and say, okay, we can help you with this. Don't worry. Make sure that they've already taken certain steps. If it's a water issue, that they know where the shut-off valves are. Make sure that that's been taken care of. And depending on the nature of the problem and the extent that they're, supplying us with, we can determine quickly we need to get there. So those emergency calls, we can dispatch. Sometimes we have to dispatch crews, at midnight. And other times you might get the call and they say, okay, I had this problem, but I was able to shut the water off. And, and they don't even want you to come on up, but they want you to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. So we help them kind of, walk them in from the ledge because they're obviously upset already about the damage that's being done.
So in a house, in a disaster, water, smoke, fire, mold, death. So all these things, there's a timeline like to get in there and get it taken care of, right? There's amount of time that you can wait before taking care of it, right?
There is. So obviously some things you want to address, immediately.
If there's a fire, put out the fire, then let's, right?
Yeah. So usually the fire department, the fire, it could be a small fire, and in a lot of cases, the damage that's caused is more water damage than from the actual fire. Because the job of the fire department, if they're called in on it, put the fire out. That's all they're worried about. So they're not worried about how much water is being applied or where that water is going at that point in time. They're worried about putting the fire out. Some fires are small, contained. The homeowner might contain the fire. It could be a small kitchen fire. I've had instances where people use their stove, their oven area as
For heat?
for storage.
Oh my gosh.
Because they have a limited cabinet storage space. So they might have some Tupperware or some plastic items that are, because they're bulky, they store them, and then they forget about it. And they go to, bake a cake or something, they preheat the oven, and all of a sudden that plastic melts and you get, a nice coating of black smoke all over everything. But yeah, so there are some things that you want to obviously respond to very quickly, and others, again, especially if it's going to be a self-pay or they're not sure if it's covered by their insurance, to send someone out at 2 in the morning versus 8 o'clock in the morning. We try to balance it out and think about the cost for the customer. So if there's no need to put someone out there that it's not that much, it's not that urgent. And so we're saving them on the
Time
cost.
on the emergency, pay for the emergency call.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So I know with water, like water damage in the basement, there's a certain amount of time before it starts growing mold.
Depending on what's the furnishings, what's there. So usually it's, between that 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
And again, it depends on the materials that are being affected. It depends on the temperature. It depends on nature of the water loss. So I've had instances where if a water heater has failed or is leaking, there are different levels, if you will. So sometimes it could rupture and all the water comes out all at one time. Other times it can be a slow leak. And so what's happening is it's always heating more water. So it's like if someone were taking a shower, so you draw so much hot water out, then it refills and it begins the heating process again. Well, that's going to create, and I had this happen actually, it was a condo in Cumberland, and the people were on vacation.
Oh no.
And the water heater was leaking, and so there was a constant hot water coming out. And so it was like a rainforest, and all the insulation was all mold. Yeah, it was really, really bad. So yeah, it depends on a lot of things. A lot of people that had unfinished basements, because of all the rain that we've gotten in the last several months, they've experienced water in their basement. And it's groundwater. Okay, so it's coming up. The groundwater is not necessarily clean water. It's not water that came from a feed line, to your washing machine or drinking water.
Yeah.
There are still contaminants in that water. And you won't see it until if you had an inch of water and then it recedes, and then you see this layer of film that's left on the floor.
Wow.
Okay.
So what kind of things are in that kind of water?
So that's a good question. You'd have to have it tested. But there could be all types of bacteria.
Okay.
It could be chemicals. It could be residue from, lawn fertilizers.
Fertilizer, yeah.
And so, again, you don't know. But what's left is called a biofilm. Now, a biofilm is often found in bathrooms as well. Around your shower, sometimes you notice you get a little black area around the grout lines.
Even the silicone is not supposed to grow that stuff, but it still grows that stuff.
Yeah, it's not growing on the silicone, it's growing on the biofilm.
Biofilm.
And the biofilm in that case is created by the shampoos, the soap, the dust, particles that are in the air that fall on that and they build up. That's where the mold is growing.
It's growing on top of the silicone, not on the...
It's on the biofilm.
Wow.
On top of it. Same thing when they have a water that just comes up from the ground. They'll call us. The problem that happens during these events, we get 100 phone calls because it affects everybody all at once. The first 20 people that call us love us. The next 10 or so, it's like we only have so many vehicles. We can only, no matter how big of a company you are, it's like you're not servicing 100 clients at one time.
So that's something I wanted to bring up is like Rhode Island had a lot of rain.
Right.
Did you guys see like a lot of, and you're saying like the first 20, but then how do you take care of everybody?
Well, what happens is that water recedes. So the ones that require the most help is the ones that have a finished basement area. So maybe 10% of those folks that call are in that situation because the people that have finished basements over the years, they've learned and they have sub pumps. Or they've managed to come up with whether it's a French drain system or have a sub pump to protect their basement. So it's the people that don't have a finished basement that they said, why do I spend money putting a sub pump in here? We don't have anything down here and we've never had water. Well, now all of a sudden when you have the real high water table and that water comes up. What those people unfortunately don't realize is there's going to be a biofilm that's left when the water recedes. And unless that's cleaned properly, there's a potential for mold to grow on that.
Wow.
So there's an education component that homeowners have to learn. It's hard. You don't want to emphasize it or push it so much that they feel like they're being sold. Like, oh no, that's not. You're just trying to.
So there's way more to it than it's wet, put the fan on it, dry it, you're good.
Yeah.
It's more to that.
There's more to it than that. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And how do they know? Like, what do they?
Well, again, it's just a learning process that they need to go through. It's kind of like a trial and error thing.
When
It's
they
like,
see mold growing on it, then
they might have to go through that and experience that and say, yeah, that guy told me that this might happen, and it did. So next time I know if I have this problem, I got to handle it differently. I've got to make sure it's cleaned.
So mold is like easy to see visually. How do they tell if something else?
Odors, you can tell by a different environment. You're upstairs in the kitchen, fine, you have to go downstairs to get something. Now all of a sudden you go in that room and it's like, oh my God, my throat feels sore or my eyes hurt, something.
Yeah, listen to your body.
Exactly, yeah. That'll be the first signal, because there are cases, we're helping someone out right now that had insulation, blown in insulation, put in their attic, and it was save on heat. I caution realtors a lot on this. I said, if you're listing a house and the homeowner is bragging that, oh, the heating bills are so low because I had this company come in and put in blown-in insulation. Well, the problem is that they don't always protect those areas that rely on the airflow. So the soffits, the edges, outer edges of the roof line, there's baffles, there's like foam baffles that are installed when the batting insulation is put in. And those baffles are there so they're not...
Air can flow through.
Air can flow through, and the soffit vents aren't covered. Well, sometimes when companies come in and blow in the insulation, they don't block those, they don't protect those. You might have an air conditioning unit up there that has a drip pan underneath it. There's a drain in the drip pan so that when that fills up with water, it can drain out. If they don't protect that drip pan, that blown-in insulation is going in the drip pan, it's covering up the soffit vents. And so not only do you not have airflow, but now when that air conditioning unit runs all summer, you could have a water damage.
And we were talking about how some of those bathroom vents are just shooting right into the attic instead of shooting it outside.
Right.
So now you're creating more moisture in the attic and just making, that's like so common.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The guy was saying it was like 40% of homes have that.
Yeah. And sometimes it was originally connected, but over a period of time, it might have disconnected. It might have came loose. It might have deteriorated and slipped off. People use the attic for storage sometimes. Maybe somebody, banged into it and knocked it off. But in that case, you're pumping up moist, warm air
out there,
right into the attic space. Depending on how close it is to the roof line, that's when you can have a problem. Yeah.
So, okay, that we're talking about the attic, we're talking about the basement. One more thing I wanted to bring up about the basement is, it's so annoying, I see this a lot, but you have the hot water tank, right? And what you have underneath it is the tray to protect it. If it blows up, it protects it. But like you said, it's gonna keep flowing and flowing. It's gonna fill up that tray and just like, the basement's gonna be flooded. So the best way for that is to put an alarm. There
are detection devices now that you can have installed that will measure or sound an alarm and alert. There's probably ones that can send an alert
Wi-Fi,
right to your phone, Wi-Fi now. Yeah,
but
so
that's good for the people who were on vacation that didn't even know their basement was flooding with a hot water heater. And the second thing is just hook up a stupid pump, the condensation pump, those little, HVAC system to the tray.
To that tray.
So just if there is
well, it depends on how high that tray is and
how much it can fill.
Yeah, and at what level does that pump work? So there are some pumps that require maybe 3 or 4 inches of water for them to be effective.
Crazy. They're so scary, hot water heaters. So scary.
Yeah.
Because, you have it in the basement. That's one thing that's going to blow up.
Right.
I mean, they have newer systems now, but goodness.
I forget the gentleman's name, but whoever invented indoor plumbing is the culprit for all of this,
Put the water heater outside in the garden. Don't put it in the house.
And there are so many, there's even some new products that they're now finding problems with. Plumbing, issues. I recently had something at my house, and it was a drain pipe. And it's a black PVC pipe. And when I stopped at a plumbing supply company and inquired about it, they said, we're not selling that pipe anymore because it's no longer up to code. And so I asked them why, and it was because over time, the material becomes fragile. So it's subject to cracking and splitting. And I said, I've got a hairline crack. And I'm thinking, how did this thing, crack? So yeah, something that's invented today and works great, you don't know until you're 10, 20 years in that, okay, this is a problem.
So I want to talk about a couple of things. Speaking of Rhode Island and the rain that we've gotten and the disaster of flooded basements and flooding homes, a lot of them aren't in flood zones. Insurance is not covered. What do they do, and how can you guys help them with affording to pay for the repair? Is there a payment plan, or what's?
Well, we do offer financing.
Okay.
We have a financing vehicle that we can connect our clients with if they need it. In Rhode Island, some of the flooding that occurred, some of the rains that we had, we were declared a disaster area. So there are homeowners that have applied through FEMA for assistance, and they're, up until like a month ago, I was getting calls that they would just got their money from FEMA, but they couldn't do anything in the meantime because they didn't have. So they lost a lot of, what potentially could have been saved because they just couldn't do anything. Yeah, so as far as the flood insurance goes, that's, you really have to ask a lot of questions. I live in Western Cranston. I've lived there my whole life, so I know the area. When I built my house, I put in French drains. I made sure that the elevation was, I actually raised the house a foot to get it up a little bit higher.
You lifted it yourself?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So when the excavator was there and digging out, and I started to see a puddle of water, I said, okay, stop here. I said, we're going up a foot. And that was...
Wow.
And then I put the French drains in on top of that. So even in the 2010 floods that a lot of people had water in their basement, I didn't. So I was fortunate. But what I've learned over the years from being in this business and people that have had flood insurance is there are so many restrictions and so many it only applies if this happens. And then more recently, I learned that the basement isn't covered
in a flood insurance.
In a flood insurance policy.
I mean, water comes in, where's it going to go? In the basement.
And now I don't know what the policy was. I don't know what the company was. It could be different levels of coverage. But one of the things that I was told is that, well, no, if it's in the basement, nothing is covered in the basement. It has to be on the first level.
Oh my God.
So I said, okay, so either my house has to be on a slab.
Yeah.
Or the basement has to literally fill and the water reach the first level.
A lot of southern homes don't have basements, so maybe they're designed for those types of homes.
Which in the 2010 flood, that did happen to a lot of people where the basement
go up,
completely filled and it went into the first level. But then the other thing I found out is that contents aren't covered.
Yeah.
So now, we had a homeowner that learned all this the hard way, unfortunately, and she lives in Cranston by one of the rivers, and it got flooded. Her house, it was from the river, right, was flooded. But it still wasn't covered because the other caveat is that it just can't affect your house. There have to be other homes in the area that have to be affected in order for it to qualify as a flood for coverage. So my advice is just ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
If you're someone who needs or is considering flood insurance, just ask a ton of questions. How do I qualify? What are the things that, and what's covered, what isn't covered, and...
Do you guys go back and forth with the insurance company?
So
assessor?
We use software called Xactimate, which is what probably 99% of the insurance adjusters use. So oftentimes the way we write up a project, when it's busy, a lot of times the insurance companies are overwhelmed. They don't even have an adjuster to send out. So they rely on us or companies like us to provide them with the Xactimate estimate.
And they believe you?
They believe you if you have a good reputation.
Okay.
They believe you. And so you're always going to get, the adjuster is always looking to make an adjustment someplace. But in our case, we go in with the attitude of trying to save as much as we can. Now, what does that mean? It means that if one wall is affected in an area and it might have been wet, for a couple of days, if that wall is compromised, it's no longer structurally sound, that has to be removed. It can't be dried in place. But it doesn't mean the other 3 walls have to be cut out. So we don't go in trying to create as
More
much
work for yourself. For
more work for the homeowner, more headaches. We are focused on the remediation part. We don't have an in-house rebuild division. So we don't have another mouth to feed. We don't have another division to pass off to. So again, we're going in, we're trying to save as much as we can. And we educate the homeowner so that they know what to expect from the insurance adjuster or from the insurance company, depending on the nature of the loss. So if it's a clean water loss, and I see you have a beautiful carpet here, but you know what? If you've had this carpet in your house for 15 years, you might be ready for a new one. And so your first thought is, oh, take this carpet out. I'm tired of it. I want a new carpet.
Yeah.
Well, not that easy. It's a clean water loss. It just happened last night or this morning.
Yeah.
We're here, in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
We can extract the water, dry it, clean it in place. If we rip this out, we're going to have to send a piece of it to a lab to have it tested.
Oh my gosh.
For structural integrity. And then the insurance company might deny, if the carpet is structurally sound, they might deny this because it was a clean water loss, and they're going to say it could have been cleaned and dried in place. So there's where you have to be careful. The company that you work with, again, and
The insurance company.
Both the insurance company and the restoration company.
Well, restoration, they're going to use you guys. Everybody's
Everyone's going to use us. Hopefully that's the case. Yeah, that's what we want. But these are the things, again, that people need to experience sometimes before they realize, oh yeah, there is a difference.
So one important question is, all right, you get there within 24 hours to fix the problem. What if they call you and you're like, I'm swamped, I can't get there till 4 days from now. How is the insurance company, are they going to be okay with now there's more damage because it was 4 days?
Yeah, if that's the case, and this happened again in 2010, it was a different company, but everybody was overwhelmed. Everyone was overwhelmed. And when someone calls, it's our responsibility to provide the service when we can, as fast as possible. And if we can't, I'm not going to tell someone to wait 4 days for me. I'm going to say, no, you need to address this very quickly. So if we're absolutely booked out and slammed.
And so are the other companies. So what
probably
what do they do?
The other companies are as well. But I would say, listen, I'll keep your name on our list, but don't necessarily wait for me. If someone can help you sooner, then that's in your best interest. That's what you should do.
But my question is the insurance company going to bust their balls about getting this done faster? Now there's more money.
Yeah, in a case like that where they have evidence that they've reached out and they couldn't get someone because of the scope of, those situations only occur when, and this has been, again, my experience in 15 years, those situations only occur when, like, it's a global event.
Disaster, yeah.
Yeah, and meaning like the entire state is underwater and there are thousands of people that are calling for help.
I'm afraid it's going to happen one day. With the rain on and off.
There could be different levels of it. Now, fortunately for myself and for my customers, we have a lot of resources that we can reach out to. So we've got the office in Plymouth that we can bring in both equipment and crews. We've got an office in Hartford, or just south of Hartford, that we can bring in equipment and crews.
Wow.
In Stanford, if it was in the southern part of the state, we can bring in crews. So we've got those resources available, and it's all owned by our corporate group owns all this. So I'm not reaching out to another all-dry franchise.
Yeah.
I'm calling our office in Plymouth and say, I need help up here.
Yeah.
Send 2 crews up and bring a trailer load of
cat litter.
Yeah, whatever. Dehumidifiers and fans and.
So that's interesting because if the water stays there or damage stays there, it's going to get even worse.
Exactly.
How many companies are there in Rhode Island? How many disaster restoration?
It's a growing number. I believe the last time it was around 50 or 60.
Wow, Rhode Island's small.
Yes.
50 or 60 in
in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
That are doing business in Rhode Island. And again, there are all levels. You know, there are carpet cleaners that
also do
migrate and got into this, and they're doing water extraction. And so they're not doing mold, they're not doing bio or trauma or fire. They're just doing the water extraction and drying if someone had a water damage. So there are all different levels of expertise and, you know, capabilities, but there are in the 50 to 60 range.
So I just looked at a house. It seems to be happening a lot, but they wanted to list the house. I went in to look at it, walking around. As soon as I got into the house, there's smoke, cigarette smoke.
Cigarette smoke, yeah.
It's like stinks. Like, it's really hard. How do you resolve those types of issues?
So there are a couple.
Besides like painting everything and like.
Well, you can't paint, first of all, not yet. So one of the first things that has to be done is you have to do the inspection, look at the areas that are affected. A lot of times that smoke residue, that film, it's on the walls, it's on the ceiling. So there's special equipment, chemical sponges that are used to wipe that residue off.
So that's something you guys do?
Yes.
Cigarette smoke?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We can help to clean that. And then there's called an ozone machine. So it's like an air purifier, but it's an ozone filter system. So that can help to take those particles out of the air. But before we work with painters, a lot of times they'll have that situation and they'll go in and they say, we can't paint these walls until they're cleaned properly. And then we'll get called to go in and clean it so the painter can come back in.
Wow. Okay, yeah, I was just curious. So what's All Dry do? Water damage?
Water damage, fire, smoke, mold, trauma, biohazard, pretty much everything. Well, we don't do asbestos, we don't do lead abatement, lead testing. Those are the things we don't, two things we don't do.
So trauma, and have you got into these, when there is someone calling, have you gone into those places and seen the damage?
Myself, no. I might take the call for what the need is, but I'm typically not on site.
Okay.
We have people that are certified and trained to go into those situations. So that happens in an environment where there's either elderly or a large apartment where there's a lot of people in a small space. So for some of these larger property management companies that have communities, they might have 4 or 5 buildings. There's 60 units in a building. So now you have 200 or 300 people in this community.
Yeah.
And at any given time, you know, these are generally low-income housing communities, and at any given time they might have an issue like that.
We had someone here that was talking about, because they worked at the coroner's office, talked about the damage in the wood from the blood and the body fluids, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to deal with, and every case is different depending on, you know, how long that person had been there. Sometimes people find out right away, and so it's not as much damage, and other times it could be a week or more, and that's,
So Carmine, how do people find you?
Oh, thanks, Kamil. If someone wants to reach out to me, they can call me at my phone number, 401-487-6903.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for stopping by.
Thank you.
And hope to see you soon.
All right, thank you, Kamil, very much. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.